evening, ladies and gentlemen, and here we go again with another discussion on common sense. And really, the issue comes down to one of critical thinking and how we develop a background. And we have with us this evening again Kevin O'Reilly, who is a retired history teacher and an author of 30 books on how to teach critical thinking using history. So Kevin, you get into this question, we went through it a couple of times on how you use history, and I think, as I mentioned the other night, that it's relatively straightforward to evaluate history from a critical point of view, because there's probably several books written on most every incident that's worth talking about. And you can do a lot of research and come up with maybe a common opinion of what the real story is, or maybe a couple of the nuances will pop up. But when you get into the world of AI, it's challenging. So I guess the question is, what transfers over from critical thinking with history as a backdrop to AI, or does anything transfer over?
Well, thank you for having me on, George. So one of the things in history is the evaluating sources. And we talked in the last discussion about getting students to think about criteria for evaluating those sources. So we talked about PROP. So is it a primary source? Does it have a reason to lie? Are there other sources saying the same thing? But I noticed in news sources, which is a bridge now to AI, news sources are more like APPS. So who's the author? What's the background of the author? Who's the publisher? And what's the reputation of that publisher? Is it peer-reviewed, and are there sources cited in this? So I think those things apply more to AI when it comes to news sources. So I do think it transfers over. But AI is a little bit different than, it's very different than, what we've seen before. I think if we use an analogy, we can look at one of those big differences. In our culture, we say the consumer should be able to decide, but the consumer needs information. So for example, when you buy food, you want a food label. You want to be able to look at that label. We're not telling people what to do, but we want to give them the information so they can decide. If you were buying a car, you would want to know, some people would, what the brand of the car is, and maybe you'd look at car magazines to look at background on how reliable is this car and all that. So those are factors. In AI, it's not obvious. So what you would be doing is buying the car without knowing what brand it was, unless you look at the links where they got that information. So buying a car you're spending a lot of money. Information for citizens is important to democracy. We need them to get accurate information. And AI doesn't tell you, unless you ask it, what are your sources. So oftentimes there's links in there. You need to click on the links and then do the things that we talked about last time, how you evaluate the source. If you don't look at the links, you're really getting information blind. You don't know how this algorithm came up with the information it did. So I think that's step one, is to click on the links, or if there are no links, to say, please supply sources. And then you can look at those and make an evaluation of them. So that would be step one.
Well, my granddaughter-in-law happens to work for Microsoft, and she's in one of those departments that does customer support kind of thing. And they get into this issue about what did you get out of an AI chatbot or any of those systems? Google's got two of them, Gemini and another one. And she made essentially the same point that when you get an answer back, okay, that's nice. Where did that come from?
Right.
Who else says this? And you can have a regular conversation with one of these AI chatbots to eventually dig in deeper and find out what's the basis of all of this commentary. And you get into this situation. I was playing around with the computer this morning, and the big news is Trump ordered the capture of a Venezuelan oil tanker.
Mhm.
Okay. And it's all over the news.
Right.
But all they either say is, we captured it because they're bad guys. They have fancier words for that, but that's what it comes down to. Or it's piracy and it's illegal. Okay, that's two different opinions, but what really happened? So I went in and did a Google search, and I got a whole string of relative reasons for the attack on this oil tanker, and it said, oh, by the way, no casualties. And none of the other articles mentioned that this was a relatively pristine operation. So things like that, I think, at least to me, are significant that I would like to know to evaluate what is Trump doing?
Mhm.
Is it doing something we need, or is it something we don't need?
Right. Okay. If you go back to evaluating the AI, you hit another one that I think people need to do, which is go to another source and compare to this one. Another thing you can do is ask AI, what's your degree of confidence in this result? So in the intelligence community, our son works in the intelligence community, and they have gone to what's your degree of confidence in this conclusion? And he thinks that we should be doing that with AI. Force it to say, well, I'm pretty sure, blah, blah, blah. And another thing you can do is say, what would critics, so this would come up more with opinion pieces, but what would critics say about what you just said? So that you force the AI to think about the opposite point of view.
Yeah.
What would somebody with a different point of view say about this? So a lot of this is about follow-up questions. Once you get your first, then you can go outside, look at a point of view that's different from this point of view, which you would not know unless you click on the links to see where it came from. Where did they get the information from? You raised another thing that I think is important, which is what's left out. What are they not talking about? And as we've talked about before, you have an engineering background. They often leave out the engineering details.
Yeah.
So I think that's important to consider.
Well, I think, again, you touch on something else that depending upon your particular background, you're going to focus on different things. And we had this discussion a while back about the Armada, and again, being a bit on the geeky side, I was very fascinated with the techniques and the technology of the English ships versus the Spanish galleons, and the fact that the English ships carried rifle cannons and the Spanish had smooth bores, which meant a hell of a difference in range. So the English could stand off and pound on the Spanish, but the Spanish couldn't retaliate, but they could only fire a relatively small ball, and they weren't doing that much damage. So you get into this conflict of, oh yeah, that's why it didn't end up with one battle. It kept at it for quite a while.
Yeah.
And so that you get into that thing. And one of the guys at the Y, we have an early morning session where we get into about a half an hour of tooth and jaw gymnastics. And again, he started off asking a question, and it was extremely specific. Put in his age and his date and a bunch of other information and asked about some condition. And got no answer. And I've asked the chatbots a couple of times about things, and no answer available because she asked too detailed a question. So you have to sort of sneak up on it and ask something a little more general to get into the field.
Well, yeah, you brought up another point, which I think is very important. If you want to know how accurate AI is with a question, pick something that you know a lot about, and then ask it, and you can see how it compares to your in-depth knowledge. All of us have in-depth knowledge of some areas.
Yeah.
Pick that, ask it a question, and then see how it comes up with, and I bet an ice cream cone that you'll end up saying, wait a minute, what about this or what about that? And that's really a way of assessing AI.
Well, that again is the case with the Armada, that
Right.
I focus on certain things because of my background, and the 2 or 3 versions that I got from AI did not consider any one of them.
Right.
So again, it's to the point of you got to ask it specifically. And the thing that bothers me is I did a study recently on how much solar cells would it take to support the city of Beverly or the state of Massachusetts. And I got some pretty quick answers as to how much electricity the city uses and how much land is available. And then I got a surprise that when I asked it how much land is available in Beverly, I asked the next question about how much is developed. It came back and told me, well, there's so much square footage or square miles to Beverly, and then there's so many square miles of water. And it was a significant number. And I hadn't for the life of me thought, oh yeah, Beverly must have a lot of water around, ponds and lakes and streams. And it turned out to be a significant number, and it was a surprise. So sometimes I think AI does enhance your memory or enhance your background or enhance your study by throwing in some extra things you hadn't thought about.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I've had this experience too. Like, I hadn't thought of that. I think that's really important. Something you brought up before, and I think maybe we both talked about it, which is how you ask the questions.
Yeah.
And this is related to education. I mean, we're all lifelong learners, so,
Yeah.
but I'm in the field of education. And there's a lot of changes coming because of AI, which we can talk about. But one of them involves asking questions, and I really like that. So I can see a classroom where the teacher says, okay, we're going to do this topic. I want you to get on AI and think of a question you want to ask, and then compare the students and the questions they ask, and what did you get for a response. So the focus is going to be more on asking questions than it has been in the past, because the way you frame a question and then how you follow up that question is going to be really important in how effective AI is. AI is going to change our lives. Much of it is going to be beneficial. It's going to be great in some ways. Some of it's going to not be beneficial at all. And we need to be able to use it effectively. And one way is to teach students to ask effective questions by comparing to each other and the guidance of the teacher. So I think that that's really, really important. I put down an example. Instead of saying, how is the economy doing, ask something like, what's the trend in economic growth in the U.S.? Please make a graph of per capita GDP since 2018, include sources. So that's a more specific. You had talked earlier about you can be too specific. So in that case, you got to make it a bit more general.
Yeah.
But we all need practice in how to ask questions so that we can effectively use it. The other is to provide context for the AI. So I'm writing a letter to the editor about homelessness. Please provide bullet points of successful programs to reduce homelessness, include sources. So I was actually using AI to send a letter to get an agent for another book. And I put in what I was writing and then said, revise this, and then used a couple of things that it suggested. So these large language models are really, I think, very helpful. So again, the questioning is really, really important in how we use AI.
Yeah. Well, again, one of the guys at the morning Susan George Gymnastics, he's still working for a living, and he uses AI all the time when he has to write a letter. In that he will sketch out what the letter is, tell AI to write the letter for him, then he gets it back and then he edits it and plays with it and gets it to the form that he likes, and yet it comes out a pretty well prepared letter and something that he can send to a client or to a customer.
Right.
And I think this gets into another issue that you just raised, that AI is here for the duration.
Yeah.
And there's two feelings in the education system. One is that some teachers develop or get programs that will analyze a report that a student turns in and tell whether it's handwritten or created by the student, or it's something that they just copied out of a AI. And the other half of the game is, as you said, this is here to stay. And when I was in school, you get an assignment to write a report about something. You go to the library and copy a paragraph out of the Encyclopedia Britannica. Well, nowadays you just type in some information and you get some Google. And I think the issue comes down to one of, okay, you're going to use Google to get something, or chatbot, or one of those others. What's the originality? What is the creativity that you're trying to get the students to develop? Can you go beyond this canned answer and provide something different, unique, that's worth talking about, as opposed to, oh yeah, it's another one of those?
Yeah. So there's a lot of impacts on education. This is both the teachers and the students are trying to adjust to it. I mean, one way to make sure that the student is writing their own answer is to make them do it right in front of you in the classroom. So there may be some of that. Teachers are using AI to evaluate sometimes. So they're not reading the essay or whatever it is. There's a proposal, students had to make sort of a draft of their projects for National History Day, and one of the teachers used AI to evaluate them. So in a sense, there's an arms race between the ability of students and AI to come up with things that are creative, and the other side trying to catch them to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that that's a fruitful kind of arms race.
Yeah.
But AI does provide the opportunity for schools to individualize instruction. George Binns is interested in engineering. Let's see if we can have him move differently than the other students.
Yeah.
Another student might be interested in dance. To move in that direction, because that's what he's interested in. And not that we only do that, because then you get kids that are just in one area.
Oh, yeah.
But that we have a balance where students can pursue things in the area they're interested in and have some ability, and then develop that ability. So I think you're going to see more individualized instruction and possibly a way around this arms race between trying to catch the kids that are just submitting things and AI's ability to fool us. So I think when you think about AI, think about it in terms of the broad sweep of history. The printing press has been voted by historians as one of the most important technological advances in the last 500 years. The printing press had enormous impact, and one of those was a negative. It reduced the ability or the willingness of people to tell stories orally. So our oral tradition, Jesus Christ told parables.
Yeah.
It was an oral tradition. That was reduced. But what we got was something different.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if writing, that is, so we used to say, gee, kids should learn how to do script. You know, they should be able to handwrite things. And then like computers make that maybe not as important. I'm wondering if AI is going to make writing less important. It's such an important skill. It opens doors. It's really important. But now we've got this new thing in that maybe we just need editing more. This, in my opinion, I submit things that I've written pretty extensively to have it look at. I want to make sure all my ideas are in there before we start. But I'm not sure everybody does that. But I wonder if writing is going to be somewhat less important. And for example, asking questions is going to be more important. What are the ideas you're bringing to the table may become more important than your ability to write them out, because you've got this aid that's going to write them out more. I don't know about that, but I wonder.
Well, I think that's where the creativity flips over into, from being able to compose something to be able to ask a good question
Yeah.
and evaluate the answer. And to some extent, you've been talking about AI in the schools. There's one I know of, Alpha School,
Right.
that it's K through 12. And one of their claims to fame is the average senior has a SAT score of something like 1595. No, it's tailored to the individual in that there's a 2-hour block in the morning where the student is sitting in front of his own computer and getting a tailored instruction in the 4 or 5 subjects that he or she has to have for this particular grade and at this grade level. Except if they can't handle that grade level, then they got to get some coaching in there. And if the grade level is too easy, well, challenge them there. And the computer figures this out, whether they're handling it well or poorly, and adjusts the class the material accordingly. And it's a very concentrated 2-hour session in the morning. The rest of the day is devoted to socializing.
Okay, you said 2 very important things there. One is coaching. So I think, again, we're all wondering how this is going to change things. But I think that teachers are going to be more in the role of coaches. Not completely. The teachers still set up. They're the professionals. Yeah. But they are going to be, whereas students are pursuing individualized things that they're interested in, the teacher comes along and says, okay, how are you doing on this? Let me look at that. That's coaching. And it isn't just the computer. It's the teacher has to be involved. And then the other thing you said was the socializing. Because if we're going to have kids at computers more often and individualized instruction, we're going to lose some of that interaction that they need.
Yeah.
And so good for Alpha to have the whole afternoon to social, because that we don't want to lose that. That's really important.
There was an article I read recently about students graduating from college, and they're not lasting a year at a job because they lack these personal skills, how to deal with people, how to make a performance presentation, how to dress for work appropriately, and all the things that a business expects.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, maybe the business is going to change like Meta. If you could apply for a job there, they give you a challenge to, here, write a program to do this. And you're allowed to use AI to write that program.
Wow.
To the point of they're saying that, hey, this is a question of efficiency and how fast can you get it done and get it done right. And if you can get help from AI, that's what we expect you to do on the job.
Yeah.
So they are at least acknowledging that, hey, this is the way it is.
Well, the whole thing about student social development is really a serious issue. It's concerning to everybody. I just, it's difficult. FOMO, fear of missing out, and on the phone all the time and interacting that way. It's unfortunate, and AI is part of that. I mean, the whole other thing of social media is a whole other issue that we could talk about.
Another show.
Another show. Yeah.
And as it turns out, we've just about had our half hour of fun.
It always goes so fast.
Oh yeah, I mean, but again, this is an important subject that needs to be kicked around and understood. And here in Beverly, we've got a new superintendent and a new challenge ahead of us. And I just wonder where it's going. And AI is going to have to be a piece of it, one way or the other. There's no way out of it. It's there.
Right.
So it's the same thing with the parents that you may not like the kid on the cell phone all day and all night, but it's the toy you gave them. Now they're using it. Are they going to get some benefit from it, or is it just going to be leave them in the dust someplace?
Yeah, it's definitely a concern.
Yep. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching us this evening. And if you have any comments, my email address is in the credits. Send me your comments, and if you've got a longer statement, there's room for you here at the table. Talk to you next time.